RobinHood Markets has rejected coming into last week, pressing down, losing its gains. Will we see a big green week coming, leaving investors happy, reaching higher levels of $125? Or the short sellers going to step in, ripping price down within next week's action? My name is Dylan from Dylan Trades. We're going to break down and analyze ticker symbol HOOD using multi-time frame technical analysis breakdown, going to the weekly, jumping to the daily and the hourly to scope together a long, medium, and short-term gauge within stock price. As mentioned, we are starting on the weekly. Each one of these candles representing 1 week. So we are working within a bull flag structure, or a bullish pennant structure, to be extra technical here, guys. Nonetheless, it is still a big movement up with some form of a pause that is going to depict the next trend. And yeah, this could be very volatile within nature. It can stem out to months and or years. This one dating all the way back from May, when we seen that big explosion pushing to 150, then setting these lower highs, pressing down lower, and to the opposite, higher lows. Stock price has been gradually coming down to the buyer's area of value, being this ascending trend line, which within our last updated analysis, we did predict a push to 125, showing that we most likely will bounce at the bottom, very close within proximity, almost to $1 of this, support level, right? And we did get that bounce, but rejecting coming a week, getting to 125, which is a big resistance marker, not only within the long-term analysis, but just a few weeks ago, we quite literally sat there for a few weeks, just bidding there really tight. And this was the topping tail, where the topping tail was aligned, within this week's action within an inverted hammer candle. Now, this isn't the best sign to see. Coming to the weekly, we have to keep in mind that you don't want to be too bearish as long as we're still respecting this pattern. Simple as that. If the bulls can, continue to establish these higher lows within this approximate location here, where are we going? This direction, right? We're climbing up like a mountain. Okay, if you fall off the mountain, you're not going to be able to keep climbing, right? You're going to lose your last step. Very good analogy here for RobinHood Markets, and you need to see the defense. So this is a good time now to jump to the daily to piece together those pieces of, will we see this defense? To start the week, we did see a very emphatic cup and handle breakout amongst the midst of this whole battle. We did see a pretty clear downtrend, a little bit of consolidation, snapping over the top, finding the cup and handle neckline. And then from that instance, we had this very clear handle. Within the last updated analysis, we covered stock exactly, thin here within this hammer candle, predicting a bounce to press to this 125 and see that breakout. And it did get there very quickly within 1 and 2 days. But notice how stock price, once again, sitting in this big resistance, was not quite able to get that baggage, right? The buyers weren't quite strong enough to have a defense to get over this level. Sellers stepping in and flushing come end of week. Good things to see is we did see a bounce with a little doji candle off that big support level, which previously did give the bounce out of the cup and handle structure. But you're already seeing the stock price fail, and this is a good example of exhausted buyers, where you just got a really clean breakout within stock price, finally pulling back towards more long-term area value, seeing the opportunity to start to move up towards the top of this, bull flag symmetrical triangle structure, but you failed and started to get a little bit weak here. So as of right now, there's no conclusive data on the daily to believe that we're going to see that big, strong movement coming into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. What is working well for RobinHood Markets here, you have to keep this in mind, is the overall market's beautiful. Right, we're seeing the overall market in a fantastic situation, not only QQQ, right, NASDAQ, but SPY. Both are aligned in a very strong, synchronized element, so that could help Robinhood here. But quite frankly, this is a very limited time situation. You're not going to want to see stock price break this support level, as now we've broken out of this, bullish structure here, very tight pinch. You've seen a really emphatic press very quickly here, very impressive, but already giving back. Now we're trying to back test it. So from this point in time here, this is going to be one of those instances where the bulls are likely going to get the strength here to press up and bid back up towards 121, get up towards 124, 125, get into this former big resistance, which was a massive support in the past, clearly represented, right? If we change that blue, Get a beautiful representation of that strong area where buyers can count on for a nice bounce. But now it's flipped to the contrary, former support turned resistance. So that's going to be the level you really need to get over. Not only being that concrete resistance, but that is aligned at that psychological $125 level. Now, at this point, you might say, Dylan, this is great, but what's the prediction? I do believe we're going to pull back actually here. Although the overall market is very, very strong, and within these instances where everything is lining up within a very synchronized bullish effect, typically that will rub off and give it the strength it needs to flip up. But just seeing how, the buyers immediately failed to, defend and get over this high, and you're already just pulling back with some pretty just dull activity, it does lead me to believe, going back to the weekly, that we will pull to the bottom, exact bottom of this ascending trend line, right? We weren't quite there. If we jump back to the daily, each one of these candles for one day, we did get a couple of dollars off, very close within approximate location. But in this point in time, being so close, you want to see stock price really separate and start to inch its way towards the top here. So I would predict Robinhood markets coming in the next week to actually collapse, pushing back to this very big low within this hammer candle. When you see these very thin, large bodies, typically this is a very big area of value where had a really volatile day, not going well, but then in the day, boom, nice upside. That in itself is a good marker point. But from there, I did, initiate a strong bounce come next day. So I do think you'll see a revisit within this low, which if we mark up is at $110. Only $5 down from here. I do think that there will be a bounce, more likely than not, coming down towards this more long-term area value, finding the support, and then trying to work its way up. As of right now, there's not enough data to, predict that bounce or whatnot. We're not going to do that. We're going to focus on what's in front of us as a technical analyst. But with that being said, I'm not crazy over Robinhood coming into next week. I would predict stock price to pull back to $110. So now we're in the hourly analysis where each one of these candles represents 1 hour. You get a good representation of the psychology, which we mentioned. A really primed opportunity at this low within the last updated analysis, expecting to see the pop to this upper resistance level. And this is such a key level. We've seen so much respect to this, not only a big resistance, but you guessed it, big support right in the past. So it's a really validated level, also being synchronized at that psychological $125 flat resistance. So when you see stock price get to such a respected resistance and lose all of this upside just like that, like very quick movement within a big bearish engulfing, pulling back, and just really weak activity here. Robinhood will definitely need to see some really exciting buyers to pick up the momentum here, as we have been suffering here from a more long-term, just kind of a beatdown within trend. And once again, going to the weekly, this is forming a long-term symmetrical triangle breakup, which could lead to a really nice upside if come to fruition. But these don't always work out in the bull's favor. Sometimes you actually do break the low, the escalator, and you fall off the mountain a little bit, right? Really good analogy for this here. So as of right now, I'm not saying that will happen. It's very 50-50 from the more long term. You could definitely see a bounce from $110 or creeping on even $107.50. Right, if you pull up our support markers on the daily, right, there's a pretty strong support around this 107 range. Formerly was around that gap and go, you name it, what have you. There is some pretty big baggage around here, that psychological $100 level. So it will be pretty hard for the bears to dominate too much lower, but within coming the next week, there's just not really a lot to like here. A really pretty harsh failed breakout within this cup and handle, starting to get really weak, despite ending the week at big support levels when the market looks strong, which definitely could help Robinhood markets. Not loving the way that the candles are aligning from the bullish aspect. So watch for a bounce to come to $110, likely come into next week, or to be exact, 110.41, right? This last former low. The indication that the upside will likely erupt will just be volatility, right? If you see a really strong movement from here, just starting to curl price action, could see a bounce from the support level. But even then, I do question if you'll just see a lower high to actually press lower. I do think Robinhood markets is in a position where we will pull back towards more long-term area of value. If you guys enjoyed today's stock price forecast and want more just like this, we'll be right back here on the channel next week, giving you an accurate, professional live update within Robinhood markets. Have a good one, guys. Take care. Trade smart.